Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky!
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
Name the dog Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in pints?
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is my friend who only visits every summer, Dill. How are you, Dill?
No, that's not. I'm Frank.
Frank, you're Frank.
Yeah.
I thought you were Dill.
Listen, it used to be endearing when you got me confused with literary characters, but like Dill, really Dill?
You don't like Dill from To Kill a Mockingbird? You don't like dill pickles, Frank?
You just want me to go away for most of the year and only come by in the summer? Is that what you want?
No, that's not what I want.
You just don't want me. You just don't want me around. You're trying to get rid of me for most of the year.
But they were sad when Dill left.
Yeah,
they were sad, Frank.
Oh God!
My God! Dill? What are you drinking, Frank? What are you drinking?
I'm just gonna be sour about it. You want me gone 9 months out of the year? No, I am drinking today. So, Budweiser. But hear me out.
What?
But hear me out. Hear me out. So, last year, Budweiser put out their it was like their Prohibition era recipe, right? And like these special edition bottles.
Sure.
Yeah. This year, there is a Budweiser copper lager aged in Jim Beam barrels.
Oh.
So it is a collaboration between Jim Beam and Budweiser. And I gotta say, it's actually pretty good. It's pretty good. It is. I mean, it's basically just Budweiser, but being aged in these Jim Beam bourbon barrels gives it this really interesting, oaky kind of taste that you expect from a bourbon. So I really, really like this actually. It's a limited edition run. They're only doing it once. They released it in late 2018, and so if you can still find some, I would say grab it because it's pretty good. It's definitely worth picking up a 6-pack. I think they're also selling it in like larger bottles, 750 milliliter bottles too. So if you see it at your local, liquor store, wherever you buy your beer, I'd say pick it up. It's worth it. It's definitely worth it. It's pretty good. It's kind of middle of the road, but it's a decent amber lager in delicious bourbon barrels. So check it out. Budweiser Copper Lager.
That's very cool. Frank, I'm drinking a gluten-free beer because I was cheating the last couple of weeks, but I have a new one, Frank.
Ooh.
It's called Drink This or the Beers Die. Or the Drink This or the Bees Die Golden Honey Ale.
Okay. Got it. It's made with honey?
Yeah. Because, yes, it's made with honey. And the guy who created it has celiac, so he was kind of forced to make it for himself to enjoy.
Sure.
And so it's quite good. It's a California beer, Frank, so it's hard to get. But, you got to do what a man's got to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so if you can get it, enjoy.
Huh. Duckfoot Brewing. Never heard of them.
Drink This or the Bees Die. Yeah, it's local. Local, Frank. It's all local.
I love it.
Anyway, it's all good. So, Frank.
Yes, sir.
I had a birthday.
You did?
Recently, I mean, several months ago.
Yeah.
I want to tell some backstory here. So, Palmer of Academy Rewind, you know him. You've met him.
Mm-hmm.
You're familiar with his work.
Mm-hmm.
So, Palmer and I have been friends for a long time, and so we on our birthdays and Christmas, instead of buying, things for one another, we buy tickets to shows for one another that we also want to see, that we go to and enjoy. Previous things have been, we've seen Lindsey Sterling and Josh Groban. Something's Rotten. We're going to see Bernadette Peters in concert in a couple of weeks. But recently we went to go see Aaron Sorkin's adaptation of Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird, starring Jeff Daniels, on Broadway at the Schubert Theater.
Mm-hmm.
I like Orange Schubert personally. Terrible joke.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible. So anyway, we went a couple weeks ago. And when I tell you, and I want to tell you about that experience, but also let's talk about To Kill a Mockingbird and the American classic that it is. And then at the end, I'll tell you about meeting Jeff Daniels in person.
There's a good tease.
Yeah. But remind me at the end in case I forget.
Okay.
Okay. Great. So, Frank, do you remember? Let's go through To Kill a Mockingbird first before I talk about the play. Actually, if we can, just a little bit, just to set the stage. Do you remember where To Kill a Mockingbird is set?
To Kill a Mockingbird is set in the American South. I want to say Alabama.
Alabama would be correct.
Okay.
Macomb, Alabama. Frank, do you remember what it's about? I'm asking a lot of questions. I can tell you. I'm just asking you.
Yeah. I feel very put on the spot right now. Like, ooh, what if I get this wrong? I guess it depends how we want to put this, but it is the story of a town that puts a man on trial for a crime he did not commit, and
allegedly,
yes. And at the crux of the whole story is his
spoilers
attorney,
for To Kill a Mockingbird.
Spoilers for this, 50 some odd year old book, 60-year-old book. At the crux of all of this is Atticus Finch is taking on the case as his attorney, and his daughter Scout. He has to explain all the racism and all the horrible things that are happening to his 10-year-old daughter.
Yeah, I think she's actually 8.
Okay. So he has to sort of you're seeing the whole story play out through her eyes, and sort of learning what racism really is, and learning what all the events that are happening in the in this town and throughout this surrounding this trial, putting them in context of sort of trying to grow up during this time.
Frank, that's a wonderful summary of To Kill a Mockingbird that you given there. So I think the important thing to remember is that the book is through Scout's eyes.
Yes,
through the eyes of a child as she plays in the summer with her brother Jem, short for Jeremy.
Right,
and then their friend Dill, who comes back and forth just over the summers. Dill, I learned this through an Academy Rewind episode. Palmer told me this, that Dill is based on Truman Capote.
Oh.
Because Truman Capote and Harper Lee were friends when they were kids.
No way.
Truman Capote used to come, and when they were adults too. And they used to come, and he would come every summer and hang out with Harper Lee and I assume her brother or whatever. And so Dill is based on, his personality is based on that of a boy, Truman Capote, which makes watching or reading Dill hilarious. Because you were like, Dill, I don't want to be Dill. But once you know it's Truman Capote, you're like, it's a little different. It's fantastic. So anyway, I think the book is really about maybe Scout's loss of innocence, about the town around her, the world that she realizes that she is living in, of these some terrible people, some good people, and how to treat them and how not to treat them, and blah blah blah. So the play, what Sorkin did is it's not really about Scout's loss of innocence anymore, or Jem's or Dill's or anything like that. It's about Atticus learning the limitations of the law. Because the scenes to which we're not really privy to in the book, like the judge coming to Atticus to be like, hey, I want you to defend this guy, and Atticus is like, I'm not a criminal attorney. I'm a real estate attorney or whatever. Like this is not what I do. The last 2 criminal cases that I had, you hung them, like both of them. But because Atticus is just a good man, that's what he is. The judge is like, this guy deserves a fair trial, so it's going to be you. Think about it.
So this sounds different than the movie, even, because I sort of expected
the movie is an adaptation of the book. It's Scout's point of view.
Right.
Yeah.
It's still Scout's point of view, but I feel like it is more Atticus's point of view than the book gives us.
I think that's true.
And,
sure.
and this
it's
sounds
been a long
like
time since I've seen the film. Yeah.
And this sounds like it's even a step further into going like fully into Atticus's point of view, and maybe even changing some of the. Because I seem to remember, and it's been over a decade since I read the book, so forgive me, but I seem to remember there being much more of like Atticus being at the deciding that like he was going to do the right thing and defend this man, and it sounds like it was sort of given to him here.
It's kind of given to him. Well, the judge who is his friend, the judge comes for his nightly or weekly walk or whatever by the Finch compound, and so he offers it to Atticus, but I think in maybe Atticus still decides it's the right thing to do, but it's not like he heard the news and he jumps up and he's like, I'm going to do it because I'm a good person.
Yeah.
He's given the opportunity to do this instead. Jeff Daniels' version of Atticus is less stoic. He's kind of more like a tired dad, if that makes sense. He's a good guy. He's a widower, and he's tired. But he's a good person. He's very approachable. Just like he has this very warm sense about him. Very smart, but doesn't throw it at you. Kind of Atticus. And so just like an easy to get along with. He honestly reminded me of my dad. Like I was kind of was watching him, and I was like, this is a man who's clearly smart and good at his job, but he's not unapproachable. He's just a kind person. He's like, no, we're gonna get that straightened out for you, no problem, sir. Make sure. And Scout's like, oh, that guy, is he gonna pay you? And Atticus like, well, not in money, but before the harvest is out, we'll be paid. Don't you worry. So there's that real quality about him. He's not a scary Atticus, I guess. Not that. Oh shoot, what was his name? Oh my goodness, Gregory Peck. Was a scary Atticus, but he's maybe more assertive Atticus.
Yeah. Okay.
And he contemplative and assertive at the same time. And Jeff Daniels played him maybe more realistic, I guess, like a person that you would know, like a person like this guy, or maybe you are a person like this guy. Hopefully, you'd want to be, because he tries to be nice. So the trial is like this guy, this black man is on trial for allegedly raping this white girl, right? And her father is kind of the one, Mr. Yule is kind of the one, kind of like, bringing this whole thing up and forward and whatever else. And so the story kind of leads you to believe that it's actually Mr. Yule who is abusing his daughter, and this guy is not like the guy Atticus. He's actually an innocent man. He's not, he's not on the wrong side at all. And so and then of course the play gives you that same look. So but Atticus, when that girl is called to the stand, he's like, he plays it all nice. It's really, really well done. It's like he's like, you want to tell me what happened? You want to do that? He's really calm and tempered with her, and she just won't budge. She's just cruel and mean and scared and and sad and shriveled and all these different things. And then so it comes to the point he basically hits a brick wall and he says, okay, I tried. And then he just lays into her. And so the play is narrated by Scout Dill and Jem.
Oh, interesting.
So it's still them telling the story, even though it's Atticus's story.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting style. The kids are played by adults.
I was wondering about that. Okay.
Yeah, they're played by adults, and apparently there's some like flack from as what I've been told, the mothers of mothers of Broadway. Like child actors' mothers. Like, oh, why? Like they're kids. They're kids. They should be played by our kids. Whatever. But kids can't do 8 shows a week.
Right.
You'd have to get multiple actors, which then changes the flow of the show every night.
Sure.
Because Sorkin is not just about reading your lines, it's about the flow in which you are saying them. It's a very particular tempo. No matter what story he's telling, that's the Sorkin tempo. It's a particular rhythm, and I don't think kids can keep up with it. I don't think they have the capability to. So they're played by adults instead.
Checks out. It makes a lot of sense.
It makes sense.
Did you feel, since we're talking about Sorkin dialogue, did you feel like this? So you said it had the same rhythm as a lot of other Sorkin stuff. Like, was it? This is a totally new adaptation, right? Just so I'm clear, this is not like an adaptation of the screenplay. He went back to the novel and did his own adaptation of it, right?
He went to the novel, did his own adaptation. Yeah.
So did it feel uniquely Sorkin in that way?
In some respects, it did. It's in the rhythm. It felt very much like I knew I was watching an Aaron Sorkin production. There was no question that this was his work, but it was absolutely Harper Lee's words a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm, sure,
the stories, the situations. Apart from the structure and how it's told, because it's kind of told almost like a Russian doll, where it starts with the kids being like, Bob Ewell fell on his knife. How does that happen?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you fall on a knife? That's distinctly Sorkin.
Yeah.
Like it's not even like, how do you do that? Blah, 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 blah. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Dill being like, this is where I come in. No, it's not. No, it's not. And I'll see you later. Things like that were very Sorkin. Then it goes into the court case, and then it goes back out into Atticus accepting the case, and then it goes back into the case, and then the end, and it keeps unfolding and refolding itself. So you don't just start with, it's really not just it's not linear. I guess it's a non-linear storytelling.
Sure,
most of it's linear, but there are elements to which you start at the end, you go to the court case, and then you go right to the beginning, and then expand back out towards the court case.
Oh,
and
okay.
then the end again. Almost kind of like an accordion, right? You start here, and then you move. You start out in the back, and then you move, and you scrunch yourself in, and then you move, and then you slowly move back out again. It's interesting. It was very
like an accordion.
Like an accordion. It wasn't confusing. It was just. It wasn't confusing at all, but it was an interesting way to go about it.
To kill an accordion.
To kill an accordion. Just bang on the keys. Bow, 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 bow. Anyway, so there was something very distinctly Sorkin things in there, kind of like so when Dill shows up, he's like, "Hi, my name's Charles Baker Radley, but everyone calls me Dill." And he keeps saying it over and over again to introduce himself.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets to a point where Atticus is like, "Okay, enough," And then he goes, "Scout, Jem," and he points at Dill, and he goes, "Charles Baker Radley, but everyone call." Dude, that's enough. You could you stay for dinner. He's like, "Oh, thank you, Atticus, and feel free to call me Atticus." That's
nice.
Yeah, things like that. There's Sorkin likes to do the almost like the origin of something in his plays. So it's not Cassiopeia. What's the name of the name? Calliope. Yeah, it might be Calliope. Calliope is tending house and whatever else, and they talk about her relationship with Atticus, and they said they're almost like brother and sister, the way that they talk to one another, and she's being passive aggressive towards him, and he's like, "What?" And Atticus is like, "Why aren't you talking to me?" And she's like, "Oh, no reason, I'm just cleaning," that whole thing, and Atticus pulls out the origin of passive aggressiveness. There was a guy once that did this, and that's what you're being. You're being passive aggressive, and it's like all this kind of big thing. That's such a Sorkin thing.
I see. I see what you mean.
Sorkin that way, but
I also
the story
I think
itself.
I think the name was Calpurnia.
Calpurnia. Thank you, Calpurnia. I knew they called her Cal, but I couldn't.
Yeah,
I didn't remember the rest of Calpurnia. Thank you. So anyway, those things are like very, very Sorkin. But then the rest of it, like if you read To Kill a Mockingbird or watch the film, whatever, you'll recognize all of it. Like the real crux of the story itself is not different. Some of the major highlights of he goes to sit outside the jailhouse door, with his one reading light and things like that. It's there. It's all there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it was really, really remarkable. The set was very cool. It was done in kind of just blocked pieces.
Okay.
So instead of like the courthouse being a whole room, it's just you have your juror's box and you have your assembly blocks, and it's all on wheels, right? And they just kind of wheel it out. It's on the tracks, and they just kind of come out and build the room, kind of like a Lego set.
Okay.
Here are your little different pieces, but the Atticus, the Finch house, there's a tree that comes down from the wings, and then a roof, and the porch rises up, and then you can pull the porch stairs out from underneath the porch.
Oh,
which
cool!
Was very cool, kind of like a bleacher seats, kind of.
Yeah.
That was very cool. So all these other pieces in the play are just like, here's a wall, here's a tree, here's a door. It's very minimalist, black box theater style almost, very minimal. But the Finch house is a house, so so it feels like the solid structure of the home. Like you can so even though the court, the law is in shambles, or the Radley house isn't well put together, or like any of these things, like none of the structure of Maycomb is falling apart. The Finch household is not.
Got it.
It plays into the play so well. It was really, 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 really clever.
That is really clever. That's some really cool imagery of having the house be the one place that's sort of fleshed out because it's where you feel safe, it's where you feel at home, and everywhere else is sort of spotty because it's scary territory especially for Scout.
That's right, especially for Scout.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so, but the rest of it's in there, like Jem losing his pants and, and like all the under the fence and like all the stuff like that. It's all present. It's
Boo
all
Radley, Tom Robinson, all that stuff.
It's all there. Well, Tom Robinson is the guy on trial.
On trial,
so,
right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's all there. It was really remarkable. The whole cast was really, really outstanding. Yeah. Like there's I don't know if this was originally Harper Lee or not, but there's a scene to which Tom Robinson is called up to the stand, and one of his hands doesn't work, right? That's one of the big things in the book, right? So he puts his left hand on the Bible. He's got to lift it and put it there, and Bob Ewell stands up. He's like, "And can we actually take his word?" Because with his hand on the Bible, because it doesn't work. So can you actually say that he's telling the truth? And the whole courtroom is silent, and the stenographer turns from his seat and kind of turns to look at Bob Ewell. Well, everyone's just kind of staring at him, and the judge is like, the court is in silence. The court is shocked or to silence or something like that. Shut up, you idiot. It was pretty cool. It was really, really cool.
That's a good moment.
I would highly recommend the play to anybody, especially if you're a fan of To Kill a Mockingbird. I forget that there's always more to the story after the trial itself. It keeps going. It feels like it should end, but it doesn't. It just kind of moves on.
Yeah.
But the trial isn't really... It's because we put so much emphasis on the trial itself, but the book itself is about Scout's Scout growing up. So there should be more after the trial because there's more story to tell. It just doesn't always feel that way.
You remember it differently. You remember it being the entire the entirety of the
You think
of
the whole
story.
thing is the trial, but it's not. It's just you think the whole thing is the trial, but it's not a minuscule part of it. But in the book, it's not. It's there's a lot before and a lot after.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so that's that. So anyway, so after we saw the play, we were in the balcony. Jeff Daniels looked right at me, so
Nice.
Yep, he looked. I was like, "Hey,"
What's up?
I was like, "What's up?" I'm Jeff Daniels. Anyway, I've been in the town you live in. I'm like, yeah, you have. So anyway, we go to the stage door afterwards. Palmer has a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird for the cast to sign, and so
Nice.
sure. I've never been to a stage door before. Why not? Our
Oh,
train
you
wasn't-
haven't?
No, I've never done a
Oh,
stage
that's
door.
cool. Oh, cool.
Yeah, this was
cool,
a new experience for me. So I said, yeah, this is fun. Sure, why not? We have the playbill. They come out with pens. I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
Like,
they're
I don't
ready
have a
for
pen.
you.
They're like, oh, no, they're ready for you. It's cool. So the cast comes out, it kind of in waves. And they're doing their cast. They're doing their cast thing. And very nice group of people. They're like, oh, thanks for coming, that whole thing. So, but during the cast all coming out and before the cast all coming in and out and whatever else, we see some fun people hanging out in like the little area. We see Grace Gumner, who's Meryl Streep's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
We see Holland Taylor, who was, do you remember George of the Jungle?
Yes.
She was George's mean mother-in-law.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she was also in Legally Blonde. She was one of the Harvard professors.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah, she's been in tons of other stuff too.
Yeah.
But those are the things I always think of her for. We saw Sarah Paulson, who is just Sarah Paulson.
Oh my
who's
God, so
pretty
great.
We saw the actor who plays Larry, your waiter, in Series of Unfortunate Events. He's been in other things too, but I actually only figured it out yesterday. It was like, oh my God, that's where he's from.
That's
he was
funny.
right there, and I couldn't figure it out. And there were a few other people that I was like, oh, you look so familiar, but I can't place you. But you look familiar. I know you. But anyway, so that was very cool. They all went to go see their friends. It's like when you're in high school and you're like, oh, my friend's in the play. I'm going to go see them and then hang out at the stage. I'll wait afterwards when they're done. It's the same thing. We're doing the same thing. It's
That's
just now
so
that
great.
they get paid for it. I'm going to go see my friend. He was in a play.
Right,
So
right.
funny. So funny. So anyway, so Jeff Daniels comes out at the end, and he is clearly exhausted.
Oh God, yeah.
Like the show is 2:40 with a 15 so it's like 2:25 because it's got a 15-minute intermission. He's on stage for probably 2 hours and 10 minutes of that.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, it's maybe 2:05. Like, man is clearly exhausted, and he goes through and he signs everybody's book anyway. Like, he doesn't say a word. Not a single word to anybody. Yeah. I don't think he barely had the energy to sign his name. He just went through and he was like, that was it, and then he was off.
No pictures or nothing?
Nope, he looked like he was about to fall down.
Yeah.
Yep. They said they told us before, that you could take pictures of him when he comes out, but you can't take selfies.
Right. He's not going to pose.
He won't pose. It'd take too long. He'd be there forever.
Yeah.
So, and he's contracted to do this for a year. So for a year, 8 shows a week, like, he's coming out and signing people's books. It's just like,
it's a lot.
Guy's tired.
It's a lot, man. 8. I got to say, like, being on stage, like theatrical, doing theater is one of the most grueling kinds of like acting. It's probably the most. It is the most, like, it'll zap your energy. People talk about like, oh, movie stars, they don't really work like the rest of us do, and that's true. Like, they'll even acknowledge like, oh yeah, I get to my favorite thing for a living. Like, it's amazing. But being on stage, like in a Broadway show, like 8 performances a week, that's no joke, man. Like, even though you're just like you're in a play, you're acting, like, it seems like that's not work. That's a lot. That is exhausting stuff.
Yeah, they're not sitting at a desk punching in the numbers. They're giving everything that they have.
Yeah, it's a pretty exhausting, emotionally and physically exhausting thing.
Absolutely, and you have to be the best at it every
time.
There's no day like you go into work, be like, oh, well, it's the day after Thanksgiving. No one's really here. You can spin in your chair a little bit and get up and get a cup of coffee and whatever. There's none of that. That doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
You're just on stage, and people are paying to see you be your best. You can't be like having an off day. Not that don't happen. So I give him credit for coming around and talking to us. It was pretty great. But anyway,
definitely,
that was it. Do go see. It's there for a year. Would recommend.
Awesome.
10 out of 10. Would revisit.
Love it.
Cool. All right. Well, Frank, where can the people find us?
They can find us at thoughtbubbleaudio.com. You'll find this show and lots of other shows from our network. Patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio. If you want to kick us a quarter a week, that works out to $1 a month. A lot of people have been doing that lately, and it's really working out nicely for us. So thank you so much for supporting us here in 2019. With our Patreon subscriber community, lots of exclusives just for our subscribers, as well as early access to things that our subscribers get to hear before everybody else. So check that out at patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio. Go to beerwithgeeks.com for all the show notes for every episode of this show, and places like iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, all those places where you can also find the show when your app of choice. And then, of course, Beer with Geeks on Gmail, on Twitter, on Facebook. We're in all the places. You can just find us as Beer with Geeks.
Cool, man. Cool.
Make you.
Cool. All right. Well then, until next time.
Cheers.